We own about 13,000 properties or so in the northwest of England, and we provide those properties for social housing purposes. It was about the time of the credit crunch, so the fact that we had to make sure we had efficiencies, we had to reduce costs, so we had to make sure we had a process in place that was automated, which meant we could reduce our staff costs. We needed to make sure that there was full control of the whole process, as well as total transparency. We created a spec of exactly what we wanted to have in place. We narrowed it down to 2 suppliers, Invu being one.
It's one person's job then to whiz them through the recognition software, make sure all the information is verified correctly, and then at that point then, as Kim said, following this, click a few buttons and the system does it all. That person presses a button on the scan station, and at that point 2 things happen. It uploads all that invoice information into our corporate finance system, and simultaneously it uploads it into our Invu workspace, ready for distribution to budget holders to approve those invoices. You really don't want to underestimate the efficiencies that you can get out of the auto recognition part of the software. If you think we are processing in the region of 40,000 invoices a year, where previously someone was manually keying all that in, to a system where a piece of software can recognise the majority of that information with a press of a button, the time saving is really is enormous. We've got a system which is slick, fit for purpose, and does what we need it to do, and we're happy with it. Staff costs, we've directly reduced our purchase ledger in terms of FTE headcount, which was always one of the goals of bringing this in. But there's also been an indirect saving in staff time, because users out in departments, when they're approving their invoices, aren't taking as long because it's slicker, the invoices aren't getting lost. They've got more time then to fulfill their role, what they should be doing. They aren't messing around doing what is in essence an admin task, approving invoices. And then that brings me on to the efficient use of resources, what I talked about before, about how our workforce on the purchase ledger can be quite easily flexed because of the way in which our purchase ledger all move around the different tasks, so there is no gaps in knowledge and skill. It allows you to control your invoice processing process a lot better. You know where your invoices are, you know what your financial commitments are at any one time, which is great for cash flow forecasting, things like that. So it does have knock-on effects in other areas of business. And I think internal controls and transparency are probably interlinked. No one in our organisation can hide. We know who's got what, how long they've had it, if they've been sat on it for too long. We even know if things are under query and why they're under query. And the customer service that we can give because of that is, fantastic. I mean, Kim talked a while back about suppliers ringing us up and us having to say, well, we'll get back to you. We don't know what the score is. We'll get back to you in a week when we've managed to track that bit of paper down. Now, it's a different kettle of fish. We get onto Invu while the supplier's on the phone. We know where that invoice is, who's got it, and we can deal with it really swiftly, which is a huge boon to the Adactus Housing Group.
We wanted to put in place a purchase order system, which means that we could control our cost, and we could set business rules up that means that depending on the type of cost, and bearing in mind we have 60 to 70 million going through our purchasing system at any point in time, that's a lot of money. So we went back to Invu and said, this is what we want. Actually, it makes real good sense because we've already got your invoice processing module. Could you tag something on the beginning that does everything we want it to do? Obviously, Invu came back and said, yeah, we can do that. And that's what we've got in development at the moment. By the end of this year, I'm absolutely sure we will have a product in place, POP and invoice processing, that gets us from A to B as efficiently and as effectively as possible, saves direct costs, and helps us manage our indirect costs of the business. Because we have been a little bit demanding, as you can probably imagine. We do, and have, jumped up and down a little bit sometimes to get what we want. But Invu, and they're not paying us for this, but I think it's reasonable to give them just a tiny bit of the credit for what we've now got in place. And they were very proactive. They were extremely patient with what we wanted to do. And actually, probably more important, they're actually a friendly bunch.